All right, I'm going to follow a little bit of advice by Patsy Rudenberg, which is the idea of when you're doing a speech, when you're preparing one of your own speeches, don't speak first, speak first. Don't write the speech. That way you'll kind of self-edit and you also have a good idea of what kind of space you're involved in. So this is my prep video, I guess, for doing an actual vocal video, which is something on the lines of loneliness. I could go very autobiographical, my own loneliness. I think that is one kind of video to do. I don't know if that's going to be a particularly useful one. I was thinking about Loneliness in Piranesi by Susanna Clark. The idea of there's this character who has been alone in this labyrinth for years upon years with only one contact, this older man that he calls the other. And I was thinking about how that's sort of kind of a core emotional facet of Piranesi is this idea of loneliness, of isolation, and what that does to you. Um, you know, there's a couple of things going on. There's a fantasy element to the book where Piranesi doesn't have any memories of his past life. He only seems to have retained knowledge and information that that aids him in his day-to-day life, which is searching out, exploring this labyrinth. So which I thought was kind of interesting in itself because it's used as a fantasy element, but there's also just the idea of if we're not in contact with other people, if we don't have that, how much stuff, how much of ourself is based on our interactions with other people? How much of a self is there? And what would be there if you were isolated for years upon years upon years in an unfamiliar setting? Like, would your old self dissolve? Would it disappear? Like, it's like this is presented as a fantasy, but maybe this is actually kind of an expression of kind of a theory of self, of of what would be left. So there's that. I think one of the other things I want to get very much into is also the idea of how isolation today makes a lot of people vulnerable to exploitation from others, from people who come into that space, make friends with them, and use that to their own advantage. And basically feed that person what information works for them and uses them, very much so, like the case that is the case in Piranesi. But it seems like that's an expression of kind of a lot of people getting radicalized in our culture today. Is that the reason why they're vulnerable to that radicalization is that they are fairly floating free people who don't have kind of a fixed sense of self. So somebody comes in and says, "You're this," and it's like, "Oh, maybe I am, I guess," and suddenly suck that into the system. I think there's also very much a thing here of there being a young person and being an older person, taking advantage of them in there. So yeah, that's kind of my ideas for doing a vocal video tomorrow on the idea of loneliness in Piranesi, which I think is actually pretty good. I'm not going to be, talking about. I don't want to talk about myself in the video, or I don't want it to be the focus because I don't think I have anything that meaningful to say. I think I have more meaningful things to say when I look at it from the outside. So yeah, yeah. I'll probably use this to try and build up some points. See if there's some other points. I'll have to look through my notes actually and just say, okay, I kind of hit two there. Is there a third? Is there any more? Is there any more notes there? Yeah, the kind of the loneliness and isolation memory. an identity, exploitation, you know, I have this idea of like how it can purify, pull away a lot of ego and puffery, and make a person, but also make a person potentially vulnerable to someone else. Um, how much that becomes, you depend on that other person absolutely, and kind of are willing to go along with whatever they have to say um, in the thing. So that's what I have so far. So I guess I'll think if I'm using those 2 points, is there other stuff that I want to add to the situation, or is it going to be a very short but sweet video on that? Yeah, yeah. So those are my thoughts. Practice. Yeah. So speak it out, then make the notes, structure it like that. Open up a story debate, or gradually reveal an idea. You explore the box you've opened. So I guess presenting the box, which is, hey, this figure in this fantasy story, Paranisi, and then what does that say about? And I'm just like, what does that say about how we live now, how loneliness operates, affects, shapes people now? Um, so, what do I want to achieve? I want to achieve, how I think Piranesi is expressing something meaningful about modern loneliness, about that kind of, the loneliness, the kind of emptiness, the forgetfulness, the radicalization, the um, kind of a deep sadness in the book. Yeah, yeah. Precise content but benefits the audience most. Yes. Use language that both you and your audience will comprehend. Make eye contact. Practice the speech out loud in a situation you'll give it in. Know what t-shirt you're going to wear. No pants necessary. What is appropriate for the situation? Yeah, know what you're going to wear. Yeah. Speak for the audience, not for yourself. Embrace them with what you have to say. Practice. Technical, body, voice, speech work. Need energy, developed muscle to talk for any amount of time. Great content and structure. Always have that. Humanize the content. Stories, images. I guess, what would be a story that would apply to this idea? Has there been anyone in my life that I've said, that person was really important and I kind of got sucked into their life? I guess there are people like that. Think about people who you fell into their circle for a while, and it shaped your world. It shaped what you did. To degree, it maybe it shaped even how you thought about the world. Yeah, yeah, that idea. I can think of someone. I just don't know if they want to particularly say it. It's not that interesting in the story. I'll have to think about that. All right, all right. I'm going to stop there. But yeah, this is preparing your own speeches from the Need for Words for Patsy Rodenberg. So I'm going to try and use all this stuff to prepare a speech, even if it's a short speech. All right, I will leave it there. More videos later.